One evening, little Tay-Tay was sitting at the pub with his Dino friends Carol, Sean, and Vintu discussing their excitement about the growing second sun on the horizon. Perhaps a little too far into his cups, Tay-Tay made a boast. "I'd love to ride it across the sky." Vintu giggled and pointed at their red-faced friend and said, "What a fool!" Carol, ever the thinker, pondered the idea and said that you would have to thread the needle to ride that without crashing. Sean simply grunted, took another foamy drink, and smiled at his friends. Tay-Tay puffed his chest and exclaimed, "I could do it! Here, hold my beer!" Being good friends, Carol, Sean, and Vintu simply continued drinking and laughing as Taylor as he stormed off. They gathered with excitement and some few nights later, as the second sun was going to passing closely by. All three stared in disbelief as their friend Tay-Tay went racing past in the sky, riding the second sun as he promised he would. The faint echo was the last they ever heard from their friend. Oopsie!
Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Tay-Tay. Let's go to the table and teach you how to play Dino Tricks, where the hook is, it's a 3 to 5 player tarot game where sometimes you're trying to hit a certain point amount, sometimes you're working with your partner to try to get first, second, third, maybe fourth, or you're just trying to thread the needle. None of that really made sense. Let's go to the table and I'll teach you how to play. The deck in Dino Tricks that makes up the 3 different games is actually a tarot deck. You're going to remove some cards or have some cards depending on what game you're going to play. But a tarot deck is 5 suits. 4 of them are kind of standard suits that you might think of. So spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. And those go from ace all the way up to ROI, which is the king. So think of it as like a standard deck of cards, except in between the jack and the queen, there is a chevalier. But so the jack is actually V, and the chevalier, then I think is the dame, which is the queen, and then the roi, which is the king. So essentially ace through king with a special 1 in between. But in addition to that, in those 4 suits, there is a trump suit, which goes from 1 all the way to 21. And the art here, as you can see, the meteor is about to hit and it's getting bigger and bigger, but also there is the Fool. And the final thing to note is on the bottom of certain cards, there's also points. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 points on the face cards. Also the 5s have 5 points, but each of the trump suit cards have 2 points each, except for the Fool, which is the only negative point card. And then again, you're going to remove cards depending on what game you're playing. So like in Oopsie, you're going to remove the 5s and lower of all the side suits. That would be Vs. But like in Thread the Needle, you're going to actually use all the cards. We're first going to teach Hold My Beer, which is a 3-player only game. Then we're going to teach Oopsie, which is a 4-player only game. And then finally, we're going to teach Thread the Needle, which is 4 to 5 players. So kind of growing in player count here. Here we have Hold My Beer set up for 3 players. So each player is going to get dealt 18 cards each. That is the whole deck. Players are going to look through their cards and pick 1 card to send to the Talon. So at the end, there's going to be 3 cards cut from the trick taking that players are going to build. You're also going to give everyone these beer cards, Hold My Beer, which is 1, 2, and 3. This is the position they think they're going to get in terms of points on the cards that they capture in the round. And as you can see up here, it will give them either 1, 3, or 1 number of game points. So there's points in the round, like deck points. As you can tell, that says there's 80 deck points. And those are what we talked about earlier, where like this R has 4 deck points, that 19 has 2, but then there are also game points. And the game actually lasts until someone hits 20 points, or if that hasn't happened at the end of 6 hands, you're just going to see who has the most points. So players are going to look at their hands, they're going to put the card into the Talon, and then before the first trick starts, players are going to try to guess whether they're going to get first, second, or third place in terms of the card capture points. So maybe this beer down here, this goofy looking skull one, let's look at their hand. They have an okay amount of points, but they also have like a really good trump. Maybe they think they're going to get second. So they're going to pick 2 and place it right there and put the other ones right there. After everyone's picked, everyone's going to reveal simultaneously. And as you can see now, these 2 beers think they're going to get second, whereas the cider over here thinks it's going to get third. And again, this is in terms of the number of deck points that they think they're going to capture. The start player for the first round is just random. Let's say it's this can here. And so they are going to lead to the trick. All of the games, so Oopsie, Hold My Beer, and Thread the Needle in Dino Trick Tarot Adventures are must follow. So coming to this player over here, if they have a heart, they must play it. So maybe this player doesn't want too many hearts. They're just going to play the D here. And coming to this player over here, if they have a heart, they must play it. So they do. They have that 8 over here. So highest of the lead suit, if there's no trump, is going to win. And what you do is you look at all the cards in the trick that you won. You look to see if there's any points. There are 3. And you're going to take them immediately and put them in front of you. So players, as they play, will know exactly what position they are trick to trick. So you don't have to like memorize it or remember or keep track in any way besides this. So players are always aware of where they stand in the trick. And so if this player, leads this heart, the next player must follow, and flow like this will continue. The interesting thing is when you're out of hearts. So no one has done it yet, but let's just say that after this trick, this player over here leads hearts again, which will now start seeing something interesting about tarot games, is this side over here, they don't have any hearts. So they must trump into the trick. They can't play an offsuit of one of the weaker side suits, which would let them lose. But now they're going to have to play a trump. So they can play any trump they want. They just have to play a trump. So maybe they play this 2 here. So now coming to the bottom player here, they still have to play hearts if they have it. So looking through their hand, they still have to play that. And this actually triggers one of the special powers and abilities in the game. So instead of doing that, let's say if they played the 6, they would just win like normal. They would take 3 points and then they would lead to the next trick. But in this case, where they won with a 2, so in kind of tarot, there's this idea of the birds. And in this, the birds are the 1, 2, and 3 for Hold My Beer, which are the special stuff. That's why there's birds on the cards. But essentially, in Trump, the 1, 2, and 3, they do something special. So if a player wins a trick with a 1, 2, or 3, they can look at the talon and they can exchange 1 card with it. So this player over here has 1. A player can also not look at the talon and decide not to do an exchange with it. In either case, that player that won the trick still retains the lead for the next trick. So in this case, they would still get the 3, take the trick, lead the next trick, but in case they wanted to, this player can look at these, and they're trying to get last, so maybe they take this C, and they put in a really high trump in there, because they don't want any trump, and then they lead, so maybe they, lead with diamonds. Again, they could have just looked at it and not exchanged, but they wanted to do that except they had a weaker hand. And so now that is diamonds. So flow like this is going to continue and yada, yada, yada. There's a couple other interesting tweaks to tarot and other powers in the game. So let's show off one of those now. So let's say down the line, if this player leads diamonds and this player over here, let's say they had no diamonds at all, so they had to play a trump card. So let's say they played a trump card, and then coming down to this player, let's say this player, also does not have any diamonds. They have to play a higher trump card if they can. So it's kind of like must over trump, I believe is the phrase. But so in this case, they can't play the 3 and the 4. They can't slough underneath. They would have to play higher than the 6 with a trump card. So it doesn't have to be super high. It doesn't have to be like, the 21 or the 19 or whatever. They just have to play higher. So maybe they play that 13. So then this player would win and they would actually get 7 points. So again, just taking the points as you go, and then they would lead to the next trick. There's 2 more special abilities. One is with the 21. So say if you won with the 21. So I haven't given an example, but you can lead trump. So say this player led trump, this player played this, and this player played this. If you win with the 21, you can choose to just discard the trick and not take the points. So maybe this player is getting too close to beating this player and they don't want the most points. They don't want those 6 there. They can just discard it. If you discard it, you still will lead to the next trick. So like let's say this player discards. They will still lead to the next trick, even if they discarded it. And the last special card to explain is the Fool. So the Fool, you can play literally any trick. You can play it whenever you want to. So let's say we're winding back a little bit here. This player plays clubs, and the player who has the Fool has clubs. They could choose to play it, and this will win. It beats everything. It beats the 21. It beats everything in the game, and it's the only -2 points, which is cool. The other thing about the Fool is even though it's in the trump suit, you're never forced to play it. So let's say, yeah, this player led that, and let's say this is much later down the line. This player over here has these. They could play this or play this. They don't have to play the Fool, even though it is part of that trump suit. So maybe they do that and save this for later. And those are the special cards, so the 1, 2, 3, the 21, and the Fool. And the last thing to explain is, let's say it was later on, and this goes like that, and this is now the last trick of the game. Whoever wins the last trick of the game also gets all the points in the talent. If you won the last trick with the 21, you still can discard it like normal, but you do have to take the talent if that happens. Jumping ahead to the end of the round, as you can see, players have a different amount of points in front of them, and it should equal 80. I probably didn't do that, but it will equal 80 at the end. And now you're going to compare. So this player over here got 23, this player over here got 28, and then this player over here got 32. So it turns out that this player got second, this player got third, but this player sadly got first. So if you got your bid, you're going to get the game points up at the top here. So this player down here, the skull beer, they got 3 game points. This player over here got 1, and this player over here got 0. In addition, there's a couple other ways to get game points. One of them was actually during the trick play. If you ever play and capture a bird, so a 1 through 3, that an opponent plays during the trick, you're actually going to get a game point right away. So in this case, this beer hug player, they played the 20, and that was when this cider player over here played that 3. So since it was an opponent who played it, they are going to capture this, and they are going to get 1 game point. So you get 1 game point for each bird captured. So if in a wild scenario, there was also a 1 or a 2 in here in addition to the 3, the player, in this case, the beer hug, would get 2 game points. And why it has to be an opponent is because if you do this, like say it was lead diamonds and beer was short suit and they win with this, that doesn't count as capturing a game point. It's only when you capture an opponent who plays a 1, 2, or 3. So that is worth 1 game point. So we've found that hitting your prediction is how you get game points. Capturing birds played by opponents is how you get game points. The last way to get game points is if an opponent bids the same position as you and they mess up. So in this case, this player bid 2, and this player also bid 2, but this player messed up. So that means this player gets a bonus game point. So in the end, maybe this person got 1 game point from capturing a bird. This player over here got 3 for hitting their position, and then 1 more because this player missed. So that's 4 game points. And then this player over here got 1 because they hit 3. If it looked like this, where this was the only player who got 2, then they would get 3 for hitting their 2, and then they get 1, 1, so 2 more for other people messing up. So that is how to play. So you're going to play until someone hits 20 of those game points, or play 6 rounds, and whoever has the most at the end wins. And that's how to play Hold My Beer. Here we have the game set up for Oopsie, and so Oopsie, I'm just going to teach the differences, so definitely check out Hold My Beer so you can compare and contrast, because I think it's a little bit easier to teach as opposed to going through the full teach again. So in Oopsie, it's only 4 players. Players are going to now have the 6s in the deck, and then you're going to shuffle and deal 14 cards to each player with 2 cut out for the talent. So their same amount of deck points are in the game, so that's 80. You're going to play the 20 points again, but also 4 hands instead. The big differences are, as you can tell, now there's 4 players. So players are going to be guessing where they'll be 1, 2, 3, or 4th place. Also, the points on the bottom are a little bit different, so let me actually hold those up. So instead of hitting second being the best, now you can see here that actually second is okay, but third is the best, with 4th and 1st being worth only 2 game points each. So as you can see, trying to hit that middle is a little bit difficult. Also, you're trying to help your partner, because your partner's also doing the same. So how this game is going to work is you're first going to obviously shuffle up, deal all the cards. Before players bet, they're actually going to pass a card simultaneously to each other. And then after that pass, all the 4 players are going to simultaneously pick which position they want, and then they're going to simultaneously reveal. And so let's say players did this, and what's interesting is you could accidentally pick the same position as your partner. So let's say players had picked this, and then you would simultaneously reveal. Then after revealing the bid, players will then pass 2 cards to each other simultaneously. The special abilities are similar, so the Fool is still the highest card in the game. It can be played whenever it wants. The 21, however, is when a player wins with it, they have the choice to either keep the trick and score all the points, or give it to their partner to score all the points. In Oopsie, however, it's not 1 through 3 that are the birds that can not only do the talent power when they win, but also are points if their opponent plays it. Now it's the 1 through 4. So if a partner has played the 4 and you capture it, that's totally fine. But if an opposing team captures either your 4 or your partner's 4 or 1 through 3, then that team gets 1 game point. The other interesting thing about the 1 through 4 is when you play it, you can either look through the talent and exchange a card, or you can give the trick points to an opponent and you don't get the exchange. Either way, the player that played and won with the trick with the 1 through 4 will then lead to the next trick. There's still the bonus if your opponent doesn't make their predicted position, but you do. So like in this case, if this player over here makes the 3, they would get a bonus point because this player over here on the other team bet 3. But if your partner bets the same position as you, you don't get any bonus. The new play to either team either gets 20 points or 4 hands, whichever's first. Thread the Needle can be 4 or 5 players, and depending on the number of players, you're going to remove certain cards. Here we have 5 players set up, so each player is going to get 15 cards each with a 3 set aside cards for the talent. How this works is players are trying to predict which kind of area or range of points they're going to get. So, for example, maybe this black cube, the hazy beer up here, is trying to get maybe 26 to 29. They're going to put their cube there. And as you can see, certain ranges are worth more points, like the big kind of troughs or amplitudes are worth 3, and then the smaller ones are just worth 1. So you kind of want to thread the needle and get in between here and those more point value ranges. Players will make the bid in turn order, and so then this player will go, and you can pick the same spot if you want, but at the very end, players will all have their cube out on the board. The powers are the same, so the Fool is the same. The 21 you will discard instead of keeping it. That is the same. You don't give it to anyone in this one. But now the birds are the 1 through 5, and those have the same thing where you can look through the talent and exchange 1 with it if you want. You also still get points for capturing a 1 through 5 of your opponent at 5 player or a 1 through 4 bird at 4 player. The interesting thing is players at the very end will look at what range they're in, and they'll always get that many game points. So say this green player over here, if they got 21, even though they bid 16 through 19, they'll still get 1 game point. They just won't get the bonus for hitting their bid. If a player does hit their bid, they get a bonus of 5 game points. And then you will just play either to 20 at 4 player or 25 points at 5 player, or 1 hand per player, and whoever has the most points at the end wins, and that's how to play Thread the Needle. So that is Dino, Trix, Tarot Adventures. And before I go into final thoughts on this game, huge grains of salt. Huge. So first and foremost, I was provided this game by Daniel Newman, who has Little Dog Games. And so that's already a big grain of salt. And I know Daniel, and speaking of Daniels, I know the designer, Daniel Kennel. We worked on Hodgepodge Dodgeball, huge pal, so huge grain of salt. And then also Saipepu, the artist. We worked on Of What's Left and Short Zoot Suit, and is also a pal. So huge grains of salt. Whew, I'm even on the back of the book, or back of the box, it says one evening, little Tay-Tay. That's me on the cover, little Tay-Tay. So huge grains of salt. That said, is this a winner? Well, there's actually 3 games included. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the package as a whole and the games as a whole, because they share similar mechanisms and gameplay. But then I'm going to go down and break down Hold My Beer, Oopsie, and Thread the Needle, and maybe which is my favorite. But so first and foremost, the Saipepu art is gorgeous. Absolutely. I'm just a sucker for Saipepu art. It's just some of my favorite. And it even does, which, maybe it's just forefront in my mind because I just talked about it with Saipepu and working with her on Short Zoot Suit and Of What's Left, is when the ranks go up or down or whatever, and the card art matches that. I'm just a sucker for it. And so I absolutely love that in the Trump suit, the a dinosaur, Tay-Tay, slowly gets closer and closer to the screen, I guess, or the camera in a way. And it gets to the point where on the 21, if I can find it, it's essentially crashing into the camera or the screen. And I think it's such a cute, whimsical touch. I love that it's bordering, or it goes like past the borders. Oh, it's just so amazing. I think overall, there's such a cuteness, such a warmth to all the card design, and it's super clear. I think my only issue is sometimes I'll mess up the diamonds and the hearts and then the clubs and the spades because they're a little similar. They both have like this kind of rounded, soft shape that sometimes catches me. And then also this is just a personal problem. I'm so bad at tarot deck remembering where the C is because it goes king, which is Rora, which I can never say, the D, dame for queen, and those make sense. And then you have the bottom with the jack. And I love that they do include the K in the Q in the jack, but then the chevalier, I always forget if it's above the queen, below the jack. So that's always tough, but that's just a me thing. And I think once you get those kind of small little rules or kind of intricacies down mentally, I think it's easy to get by. And I think that almost speaks to the game as a whole. There's little intricacies that if you get them down, it's smooth sailing, but they do take a little bit. Like I taught this to someone who plays a lot of trick-taking games, but who has never played a tarot game before, and it was a little bit of a teach to explain that you must trump, and you must over trump and over win and things like that. Also, the powers, again, there's not that many. There's like 3, right, or 4 or so, but they change depending on the game. And also they are just like another thing to learn that I think once you get them down, it makes sense. But again, is a little bit of that teaching hurdle where you're like, if you have to teach tarot to someone, if they know tarot, then it's just a little bit of the powers, which are great. But if they don't know tarot, then it's like the tarot and the powers. So just FYI, there's some level of a teach if you're coming in cold to these tarot adventures. But I think learning tarot this way is so interesting. It's so fun. These games are outstanding. Let's cover them in order. So we have Hold My Beer, which I absolutely love. I think there's something so fun to having players cultivate the talon, having the powers be really clean, having it just be 1 through 3, so there's not too many birds. I like it. I think there's a lot of really fun things you can bounce off to try to get second. It's cool that there's always second is the goal. And when you're bidding, you're like, oh, can I do second? Is like the main idea because it's the most amount of points. And sometimes you're just like, you know what, I'll just go high or low. And there's a nice little dash of hand manipulation. I think the powers are so fun. They're so useful and sometimes really hard to pull off. But there's that cleverness of when to short suit yourself a little bit to maybe pull off winning with a bird, but also like not too much because then you're just kind of bleeding yourself out in trump. There's that really fun tension with the tarot and the short suiting and the must trump. It sings. It's really good. I think overall, again, and maybe this is just a critique of all of them, and I kind of said this at the top, just a little bit of rules with the powers and the tarot that if you can get past, which I think it isn't too bad, then you're in for a delight with all these games. Next up, Oopsie, my favorite of the 3 games. This has that player aspect or the partner aspect. They all have a player aspect. This is the partner aspect. And I absolutely love that you pass a card to your partner, then you bid, then you pass again. And there's so much fun into the passing. I've played where we didn't do any rules conventions, and it definitely leads to those oopsie moments with your partner where I've passed with my partner and we somehow are always betting the same position. We always go 3 or 2 or whatever it is, or even 1s or 4s. We always kept getting on the same thing. And in the rule book, it says it's strongly advised to come up with a passing convention. And I'm someone who, when I play Tichu or Bridge or whatever, I'm not too big on passing conventions or Hanabi. I kind of actually like to play with a group, see what happens. Hanabi's a little funny because I think that one, I think I have some like default conventions that's kind of get ingrained. So anyway, long story short, I like to play without conventions and just see what happens. But in the rulebook, it's strongly suggested. So I did try that, and it just opens it up to some really cool strategy, right? Like there's a fun depth of strategy where kind of like how people like Magic the Gathering. Some people like just playing Magic the Gathering, but a lot of the play of Magic is meta and people building their decks, and people really love that. So it's cool to bring that into Oopsie and have conventions and kind of play off that. That's really, really fun. And I definitely did better. A lot less oopsieing. But it's so cool in Oopsie to set up your partner for hitting a certain position, especially when you have the powers that let you, give tricks around. There's just a lot of cool levers to pull, and it doesn't feel like too much. The amount of control that Daniel Kennel put into the game is perfect, and I absolutely love it. The last one is Thread the Needle, and I think this is my least favorite just because I think I only play this with the 5-player. Just because when I have 4 players and I'm playing this game, I'd want to play Oopsie, and so I don't find myself playing Thread the Needle at 4, and then that leads it to 5, right? So then I'm playing Thread the Needle at 5, and it's just too many players, and the kind of the restriction there where you must trump and stuff, it kind of just leads to a little bit more forced play. And I think trying to thread the needle at 5 when there's so many players, so much that can happen, and so many unexpected points that you can get or not get, I think it's just a little too chaotic for something that feels like a little bit of a precise game to me. It's very funny, and I think it's cool to have Oopsie and Hold My Beer, which are funny in different ways. I think they're funny when you match on the same bid as someone, like you both pick 3s or 2s or 1s or whatever, and playing around that. And actually that's, I think, like a really big strength of those games is they are very funny when you match, but then they still are strong games. Like sometimes you'll match with your partner and then still do okay because one of you hits that and then you try to make the other 2 people not get theirs. So it's really cool that the game is still strategic when you do make those goofy little oopsies moments. Whereas in Thread the Needle, I think like a lot of the oopsiness, you can't like move around it. It's like, oh, you actually like messed up and didn't get as many points. So Thread the Needle, not my favorite. I think I would mainly place at 3 and 4, and then like my favorite is 4, even though 3 is definitely pretty close. But that is the absolutely wonderful Dino Trix Tarot Adventures. I think Sai and Daniel did an amazing job on this production too. I love the art, I love the little tokens, and I love the cubes. Just everything is so great. I think this sings. So if you want a wonderful introduction to tarot, definitely check this out. I think it does so many things right, and I think the games themselves are stellar. But again, huge grain of salt. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tay-Tay, and see you on the next comment. Okay, bye.